Welcome to the lecture. I feel very weird doing this and talking to no one. So, join me for a ride, which might be quite interesting. Sorry I can't be there this morning. My little one has a kindy orientation happening, which I need to be there for. So, I will join you shortly for the practicing. But for now, you can watch this clip and catch up on the lecture that way. So, today I'll be talking about challenging self destructive beliefs. Um, which will be a short lecture. I won't go for too long, but it ties in really nicely, I think, with some of the therapeutic concepts we're talking about in theories and therapies. So, not to get too confused or caught up in what therapy goes with what technique, because we're speaking quite broadly here. And this idea of self destructive beliefs can be integrated into a number of different therapies. Before I get started, just like to acknowledge the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the traditional custodians of the land, rivers, and sea. We acknowledge and pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging of all nations. And as you well know by now, I'm sitting on Dharawal country and I pay my respects to the traditional owners and acknowledge that the land was never ceded. So, challenging self destructive beliefs. Where do we get started? We have here just a beautiful quote from Rupi, which is, "What is stronger than the human heart, which shatters over and over and lives?" And oftentimes we can shatter our own hearts, can't we, with the thoughts that we have or with the stories we tell ourselves. So we're going to talk now around how we challenge some of those negative beliefs or thoughts that we hold and that get in the way of us living a life that we'd like to live. To start with, we'll talk about some therapeutic links as to where this idea of challenging self-destructive beliefs comes from. Um, there is a therapeutic technique called rational emotive behavioral therapy, which you may have heard of. It's not as commonly used anymore. It has more been replaced by CBT these days. But RBT was founded by Albert Ellis, and it was founded on the idea of challenging irrational and destructive beliefs and how these beliefs become our reality and how this reality can influence our mental health and well-being. The REBT model assumes that a sequence of events leads up to a person experiencing negative emotions and behaviors. And so it's the starting of that really clear link between thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and the cycle that ensues from there. Dryden and Neenan developed the ABCDE model to represent what happens in this process. And we'll talk more about this when we do CBT. So I won't go too much into the ABCDE model, but a quick snapshot is that it describes how we come to experience negative emotions and how quickly this can happen and become ingrained in our thinking patterns. So how the model works is that you have an activating event. So it might be something like, you know, going to a party and not being said hello to, or missing a kick in soccer, or just some kind of objective incident that happens in our lives. And then what happens if we have a belief? We have a belief about that event, which can be rational or irrational. So an example of that could be I go to a party and, you know, I don't get said hello to in the first few minutes. No one likes me here. Or, oh, I'm awkward. What am I doing here? I don't belong. Or I missed the kick in soccer. I'm hopeless. Why did I think I could do this? I'm having a shocker today. I suck. Whatever it might be. We have that belief about ourselves based on that event. And conversely, it could be a really positive thought that we have. It could be around, oh, they didn't say hello to me because they didn't see me. I'll go say hello to them. Or, oh, you know what? I missed that kick. I better run so I can get the next one or I can defend now, whatever it might be. But you can see the differences in how we think and how we respond. The belief we have about ourselves attached to that event has a deep impact on the consequences, either emotional or behavioral. So, the party example, if I have that negative belief that I'm a loser, why am I here? I'm going to be probably more held back, more withdrawn. I might keep my eyes downcast, or I might go hide in the corner, hide on my phone, go to the bathroom, remove myself even more socially, which then compounds that feeling. Alternatively, if I have the positive thought, oh, they didn't see me, or they don't know I'm here, we'll go and say hello, we'll reach out, we'll put ourselves out there. Again, really different impact that that consequence has depending on that belief. Similarly, with soccer, I feel like I suck. I'm no good. I shouldn't be on the field. My head goes down. I'm distracted. I then miss another kick, or I'm not as involved in the game. Conversely, if I think, oh, I missed that kick, I can get it back though. That's all right. I run and get it, and my game improves. So, real differences in the same activating event, but different beliefs that are attached to it, which then influence the consequences. We then have the D, which is disputing irrational beliefs, and that's where the work comes in. So that's where we can work with clients to challenge some of those beliefs we hold about ourselves. If we do have those inherently negative thoughts or beliefs about ourselves, how can we challenge them? Maybe do some reality testing or integrate some strengths into that. But how can we shift that belief to be more positive so it will then impact our behavior? Because then we'll see the effects of disputing those irrational beliefs. Those consequences could change, which in turn changes the cycle. So, again, really quick explanation, but hopefully you can see from those examples how that works, how the model works, and where the work of the therapist kind of comes into it. So, the role of the counsellor. All people have the right to choose what they believe, value, and think, and no one has the right to change that for a person. Our attitudes are intrinsically ours, and as counsellors, we need to acknowledge and respect this right. However, as counsellors, our aim is to help people change so they'll feel better. Therefore, it's the counsellor's role to challenge and question self destructive beliefs the client might present with. So, the really important words there is question and challenge. So, again, we're being curious and we're reflecting back, holding up the mirror of what impact does that belief or this thought have on your life, or have on the choices that you make, or have on how you feel. It's not telling people that belief is wrong, it's unhelpful, don't do that. But again, we're being curious and we're helping the client to process that for themselves. So, helping clients to realize if their beliefs are irrational or if they have unrealistic expectations. That happens. It can happen, really easily in terms of what we expect from people, expect of ourselves, or expect of the world around us, right? So by safely, and by em, empathically, I had trouble with that word, challenging that, we can help the client to imagine things differently or see things from a perspective they haven't usually deviated to. Many of our beliefs are formed in childhood and present in terms of what people should do, what they must do, what they ought to do as part of everyday life. So when we're hearing things like, I should do this, or I must do that, or I should stop this, that's an indication that there's some kind of discrepancy there around the pressure they're putting on themselves to be a certain way, to do a certain action versus what they're currently doing. And why is that? Where's that discrepancy coming from? And what's attached to that should thought? Like I should go to bed at 8 o'clock every night, otherwise I'll be tired, I won't sleep the next day, then I'll be grumpy, then it's my fault, blah, 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 whatever it might be. And so where does that idea that you have to go to bed at 8 o'clock come from? It sounds like, staying up to watch the TV show Criminal Minds on Monday nights is actually a time you really enjoy. It's a time to de-stress. And so you do that, but then you feel guilty about it, and that guilt is making you feel quite low. So let's talk about that idea that you should be in bed by 8 o'clock. And so by challenging that belief we have about ourselves, we can then talk about the negative implications that we put on ourselves based around that. Through exploration of thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, we can assist the client to recognize when they might be engaging in self destructive cycles. So, again, it's about holding up that mirror, helping them to explore and really challenging some of these beliefs they have about themselves or how they ought to be acting and where that comes from. Is that genuinely your belief? And are you acting in accordance with your values, or are they being externally imposed on you from another person, your ideal way of living, from childhood experiences? Often it can be our parents' voices coming through of what we should and shouldn't be doing, which no longer rings true for us. But those feelings of, guilt and resentment or, doing the wrong thing can be really hard to shift if we don't have that objective perspective, kind of questioning that and bringing our awareness to it. So while counselors don't have the right to impose their values and beliefs on the client, what we can do is raise awareness of the choices available to the client. Clients will then be aware of choices available to them and, if appropriate, act on these to create positive change. The role of the counsellor is to challenge self destructive beliefs and work with the client to replace these with helpful, realistic alternatives that the person can integrate into their lives. And so, again, really important that we're not telling the client what to do, but we're letting them know that they have choice. We're helping them to see that there are other ways of being, of living, of existing in relationship different from what they're currently doing. And so it could be just around posing that. I feel like I can hear that you're um, feeling really guilty about. Um, I can't even think of an example. I should have prepared this earlier, shouldn't I? Um, I hear that maybe your partner really enjoys um, playing cards with you every Friday night, and that's something you enjoy too. But there are times when you want to go out with your friends on Friday night, and you feel really torn between the two. You feel like you should stay home with your partner, but there's a resentment because you want to be out with your friends too. So rather than staying home every Friday night and playing cards, feeling resentful, and not talking to your partner about it, what other options do you think we have? What else could you do? Have you thought about that? Do you have choice here? Whatever it might be. Are there other ways of spending your Friday night? Are there conversations you could have? Whatever it might be. That's probably a really um, surface level example. And again, those choices are quite narrow there because it is so surface level. But just opening up the person's mind, the idea of choice is really important. Getting their input as to what other options you have available to you. And they might not see it at first. So it might take some prompting, gentle prompting. Again, we don't want to come in too heavy handed with the solution or what you have to do. Again, it's a collaborative conversation around what else is available for you here. And we kind of touched on this already. So that's the must, should, ought. Um, so these ways of thinking, these unhelpful thinking styles, are often formed in childhood, and they're learned from our significant caregivers through verbal instructions or watching and modeling behavior. As we grow over time, some of these might be rejected through our own experiences, and others will stay. So, you think about maybe your own behaviors, and might be just really benign behaviors about, your views on sleeping in or waking up early, or when you do your grocery shopping, or uh, when you do the laundry, how quickly does the laundry go out after you do the washing, whatever it might be. Or it could be around your approach to study or how you engage with friendships or what your boundaries are, where these come from. And it could be through things your parents, your caregivers, those around you in your life have told you is what you do, or it could be what you saw modeled to you. What happened in your household growing up? What happened around you growing up? And what did you learn? And what have you taken on from that, whether consciously or subconsciously, and how does that present itself in your current life? And that there might be really helpful aspects of that that really assist you and drive you, and is a really strong um, s- source of identity for you. And there might be parts of that that are unhelpful that you want to do differently, but you're not quite sure how, or that you find yourself getting stuck in that same pattern. And that's where the challenging and the questioning can become really useful. We have touched on this, but when a person uses should, must, ought, it can indicate a belief they're holding on to that might not fit for them now. This can indicate a mismatch between head and gut level and leave a person feeling confused, pressured, or guilty. And there might not be a really simple answer to that. It might be taking some time to process. But just bringing people's awareness to that discrepancy, can be such a powerful process. So they can begin to have that awareness of, I'm doing this and I'm feeling this because of that, and I don't want to be doing that. So what can I do differently, or what do I want to be doing instead? And that's where the work can happen. It's important to encourage people to make choices and realizations that are right for them and their moral code rather than what has been previously imposed. So that's where doing some work around, getting to know themselves, some values work, uh, some self-identification or self-knowledge processing around, well, what do I want? What do I feel? What's useful for me? What's helpful and what's not? For some people, that's really accessible, and for others, they might not have ever really done that before. There's people who are constantly putting others before themselves, or people who maybe have grown up in really critical or dismissive households, aren't don't haven't had that opportunity to really develop those skills of tuning in and listening to themselves and trusting themselves. So again, that work can be done in terms of slowing it down and getting the person to check in with themselves, their body, maybe doing breath work, whatever it might be, but helping them to identify, how they feel and what they think about certain situations. If we pick up on a should or a must or an ought, we can bring this to the client's attention. So check in how the statement is feeling for them and explore if there is a statement that feels more comfortable. So, if someone's saying, um, I'm just so tired, I'm working, I'm studying, I'm looking after kids, but I should just get on with it, right? I should just put my head down and get my work done. Well, let's just stop there for a second. You should just get your work done. Tell me more about that. Where does that come from? Or what does that mean for you? And then you can explore that belief that underlies that self destructive thought. Where does that come from? What pressure are you putting on yourself? And how else would you like to respond to the situation? Or what do you need? What do you need to stop to check in to make it more useful or helpful for you right now, rather than just getting on with it? Because it seems like that's not working. So again, that's all conversational. There's no really clear answer to that. You as a counselor won't know, but it's about the exploration and the processing work you do around that to help the person to think through. Identify choice or identify actions that might be useful for them, and then you can help them to take those steps to do that. All right, and that's the lecture done. Told you it was short and sweet, 20 minutes. Um, so hopefully you enjoyed it. Please, if you have questions, write them down and bring them to the lecture room at 11 o'clock. Myself and Carolyn will be there. We can answer any questions that you might have, and from there, we'll get stuck into some breakout rooms for some practice. All right, see you soon.